Shira and I want to talk to you about something that's very personal. Your body.
Remember, it's your body and no one should touch you in a way that you feel is wrong.
I'll get anybody who tries it.
It's not that easy, Orko. It's hard for a young person to admit that he or she has been touched in a bad way.
If you've been touched that way, don't be ashamed. Tell someone you trust, like your parents, your doctor, your teacher, or counselor, or your minister or rabbi.
Right, Orko?
Right on.
Joe,
Jacques?
did you hear the one about the two cannibals eating a clown?
No.
One says to the other, "Does this taste funny to you?"
Heyo.
Welcome to Carnival Personnel.
I'm Joe,
I'm Jacques.
and we saw Spider-Man. 2 weeks later.
We don't want to, brag or anything about being on the cutting edge of the modern
And
movie.
we're talking about the Sam Raimi Spider-Man.
We just finally got it here. It's on Netflix.
Right.
Hands down, the best Spider-Man I've seen.
Best Spider-Man ever.
This year? Maybe no. It was absolutely great. I think they finally got it. I shouldn't say they finally got it right. The other ones were fine, but this I think was like truest to the conflicted, doesn't really know what he's doing, kind of in over his head, high school kid.
Yep.
Kind of just a really sweet kid in the middle of all this stuff, trying to figure out where he fits in high school in the world. It was great.
Yeah, I liked it. And the references to a past Spider-Man movies, the lore, the Avengers are heavily sprinkled in this movie.
Right.
A lot of a couple of surprise cameos. You have your traditional Stan Lee cameo, obviously, but aside from that, you're pleasantly surprised throughout the entire movie. And there's even a twist. There's even a twist in the movie, boys and girls.
Which one of the things I don't like about Joe is he figured it out just before it happened.
Oh yeah,
type thing.
Well, that's like figuring out that a fire is about to happen, like right before your house burns down,
or the Titanic was going to sink.
Right. Like yeah, you're already like halfway in the ocean. You know what? I think we're going to hit an iceberg. It's like really doesn't make a big difference.
But I did. After you see it, you're like, okay, yep, I should have saw that, but I didn't. So it was great that I got caught off guard. But I did. I liked that he was a real 15-year-old kid, just a real kind of, a nerd in school, not really smooth with girls, not really, big on taking the selfies. So he was definitely like a millennial kind of kid.
And it's great that he's not alone. He has his best friend in the movie.
Right. He has a sidekick, sort of speaking a sidekick.
The guy in the chair.
The guy in the chair, which was a great running gag. But I did. I love the this is what does it take place? Like 6 years after?
8 years.
8 years. And when did
It's basically modern day. Like it takes place. There's a beginning. Now we're kind of giving away some of it, but it basically takes place 8 years after the Avengers' first movie.
Right. So there was, like you said, a lot of Avenger stuff sprinkled in there, but it was a standalone. Well, we're not giving any spoilers away, but we know Tony Stark and Iron Man had, parts in this movie because you can't see a poster without Avenger Tower being in the background.
Yeah. The trailer. Yeah, if you saw any of the trailers, I mean, that's one thing I didn't like about the marketing of this movie was that Sony being Sony, they gave a lot away in the trailers. Like you didn't see it, but like they gave away the Staten Island ferry being split apart and then rehabilitated by Iron Man. That was in the trailer.
So I get made fun of for a lot of reasons. One of the reasons is I won't watch trailers. There's sometimes you don't have a choice and you see glimpses, but I am. If I'm in a movie theater and the Star Wars trailer will come on, I will shut my eyes, plug up my ears, and hum, some Pixie songs so I don't have to see it. I go well out of my way not to see things, posters or...
You love to not know.
I love to not know.
What's the capital of Zaire?
I don't know that shit, man. But I do. There's so many podcasts, goofy podcasts I listen to friends of mine, just this podcast I'm fans of in the nerdy superhero world, which I will go completely on lockdown from for a couple months. If a new trailer comes out and you can see the description, oh, they're talking about the new Wonder Woman trailer. They're talking about the new. I don't even want to hear people talk about it. And then when you go back and you listen to the older shows, and the people on the podcast are complaining, the trailer gave away too much, then don't watch the trailer. It's the same thing when your parents are like, oh, I don't like that,
Well, that's the thing is, like, I think we like to be hyped up for a movie and to be teased like a teaser trailer should be. But at the same time, we don't want the trailer to give away too much. Like, I liked the trailer for Rogue One. Like, when you didn't see it, but when I saw it, it was just hyped enough where you got an idea for the feel of the movie, but it didn't give away any of the major plot points. It didn't give away any big scenes. It didn't give away any big characters, and it was done correctly.
So my favorite, comic of all time is the Batman-Superman team-up. And one came out, I think it was like 2000, 2001, they did a relaunch. And they didn't really title it. It was just the new Batman-Superman logo and one, some people refer to like as world's finest. They've taken like the first 20 episodes and made 2 of those DC animated movies out of that are really, really great. But I have, my first Father's Day gift from my then 6-month-old was we went and we got the big, tattoo on my shoulder of that logo. I was waiting forever for that movie. I knew nothing about the movie except Batman faces Superman.
Yeah.
It wasn't till the day we're going to the movie that my, big mouth little security leak of a smaller child tells me, yeah, Papa, Wonder Woman's in this movie.
Oh.
And I truly had no idea. I had not seen a poster. I had gone the whole time that the movie was in production and selling it. I didn't know that and then, of course, as soon as you see her in the movie, you're like, oh, you fuck, you ruined. But I do. I don't have a lot of sympathy when people say the trailers gave away too much because simply you can be like me and be completely ignorant.
Well, I mean, it's almost like the current Trump administration is like one big long trailer that I'd like to avoid for the end of the world. But I mean, before we get off of Spider-Man, I want to say this: Michael Keaton, fantastic in this movie, scary as F later on in the movie. That scene towards the end was a very tense. Lordy, that was quite the tenses. But I think this is the first time an actor, now correct me if I'm wrong, but an actor in a superhero movie or in the superhero genres have played both a hero and a villain.
It's happened in the sense when a hero turns bad.
Right, but it's the same character.
But it's the same character.
But an actor playing 2 different characters, one hero, one villain.
And not a hero, an iconic, one of the Mount Rushmore of heroes.
Right.
Heroes. He goes from Batman.
Right. Granted, Vulture isn't exactly the villain of all villains. He's sort of the starter villain for Spider-Man. But what a great start.
It was. And it's funny because there's a list out there of people who've been in both DC and Marvel movies, smaller roles, and they've been, one guy that comes to mind, I'm horrible on his name. I heard him on a couple podcasts, really funny guy. He in the Dark Knight, the second Christian Bale Batman movie, was the cop that Harvey Dent basically kidnapped and was going to kill, and it was scaring when Batman basically intervened and kept Harvey from killing him. Yeah. So he was a bad guy there, but he's played like a smaller good guy role in the Marvel universe. Yeah, but when you take Michael Keaton, who was Batman, and for a lot of people, depending on how old you are, that is Batman.
The Batman.
That was it's funny because you have people who Adam West is Batman. You have some people who Michael Keaton is Batman. You have people like me that Christian Bale is Batman. Not so much Val Kilmer.
Or Kevin Connolly.
Or...
speaking of Kevin Connolly, do you know who the voice of the little bit of a spoiler, the voice of the suit that Spider-Man wears? Jennifer Connelly.
Oh,
yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that is great. Wife or daughter?
What?
Is it his wife or his daughter?
No, it's Jennifer Connelly. What are we talking about? Jennifer Connelly is the actress who does the voice of the suit.
Right. But what's the relation to Kevin?
None.
Oh,
Jennifer Connelly.
no.
Oh, all right.
I'm really dumb. Slow it down.
All right, just go back to the 80s and watch some movies, man.
That is the funny thing. Speaking of that, our Netflix pick of the week was Glow a few weeks ago that was set in the 80s. Here, home.
Is it still your pick of the week, you asshole?
Here, home. The theme of their homecoming, and not giving. This isn't a spoiler. It's called Spider-Man: Homecoming. So
Right.
the big homecoming party at his high school was an '80s theme, and a lot of the music sprinkled throughout it was '80s music and stuff like that.
And let's touch upon that. The soundtrack
Was great.
Yeah. I mean, it's punk. It's
a lot of '80s stuff. I mean, there was a couple, like Spoon had a song in there that's a great band. That's early 2000s band and stuff, but most of it was 80s stuff from,
Ramones, and you got I think that's like the go-to punk song.
Right.
Yeah.
So that it was a really fun movie. I like how it again kept in real time with the Avengers movie, the first one, Civil War. It tied in a little bit of the storyline from Civil War into it, which was really great.
I like how they wove the two together.
And again, without giving away spoilers,
We want to tell the whole movie now.
There was a couple other nods to 80 movies inside this movie as well.
80 movies or 80s?
80s movies.
Oh, okay.
Well, if you total them up, maybe there was 80 movies.
Yeah, there could have been 80 references in this movie.
But
how long was this movie? Like 2 hours?
It flew.
Yeah, I know. I honestly, I could have sat for another hour.
And what always surprises me going to Marvel movies, all superhero and sci-fi movies, but especially the Marvel movies, I remember I can't remember which movie, but I took my oldest, who was at like 4 at the time, and it was a matinee show in the middle of the week. It was like the third or fourth time we saw it, and there was maybe 4 or 5 other people in the theater who got up to leave. So he stood up and put his arms out and told the people, "You have to go sit down. You have to go sit down." And after the first, bonus scene, they were like, "Oh, that was great," and they went to leave again. He's like, "There's more. Sit down." And afterwards, the guys were like, "Yeah, he's a really cool kid. Thanks. We would have missed this." Why would you leave until truly the people sweeping up the theater come in and tell you, go home?
Right.
There's no more here. What was that? In Ferris Bueller at the very end of the movie where he comes out and he's like, "Go home. It's over." So until the theater manager tells you, "No, I swear the movie screen's been blank for 5 minutes. It's not coming back on. You go now. You stay there and you watch," because there's 2 bonus scenes.
Right, and if you're paying that much money, I mean, it's like it's like why you put down that much money, and then it's just like as soon as the first word that says "the end" or "directed by," you're out the door. Like people, I can't stand those people who have to just like leave and beat traffic like they're leaving a fucking Super Bowl.
right.
I don't want to beat the. I want to beat the traffic getting out of this matinee movie from 3 weeks out.
There's one light leaving the theater before you hit the highway. Maybe you want to get the light cycle just right. But seriously, and then after the first halfway through the credits, the first bonus scene, people started leaving. We hadn't seen it. I didn't Google to see if there was one at the end, but having seen, I think I've lost count in like the last 10 years.
12.
Yeah.
Marvel movies. Yeah.
Then this was and it was one of those bonus features. Again, no spoilers, but you stay for it. You know.
And we got Thor coming up in November, and non-Marvel related, we have Star Wars coming up in December. So
if you were thinking about offing yourself anytime soon,
just wait until New Year's.
Come back in off the ledge. Now, as soon as the very last, before the credits and the last one hilarious line of the movie was uttered, I looked at Joe and I'm like, "Does Marvel make bad movies?"
Right.
And he's like, "Iron Man 2, like didn't blink, didn't hesitate." But that's something I want to touch on real quick. I don't think they've made a bad movie. I don't think they've made a movie that I've been, "Oh, this is absolutely awful." There's been some that have been so much better than others, but I don't think they've made a movie that I'm like, "Oh, I can't believe they just dialed this in. I want my $15 back. That's 2 hours of my life I'll never get back." Even a movie like that had, some really cool moments. some really funny moments. That was the first time in that movie that you saw. And one of the cool things about Iron Man is they work really hard in each and every movie to how his suit gets put on.
Yeah.
Like different ways he's developed to have the suit. And then the second Iron Man, that's when he's racing the car and Happy just throws him basically a briefcase that he just steps on,
Right, and he just, steps into the suit.
And that was cool. So there was some more. But truly, again, Marvel has just made another great movie.
Right, and was this a Sony movie or a Marvel? I mean, this is a Marvel movie. It's Marvel Studios.
It's a Marvel movie that Sony, and it's funny. I have shout out to my friend, Brandon, who's been over at Sony for about 12 years. And one of the things that Brandon does is he's responsible to sign off and approve every trailer around the world. So a movie like Spider-Man, there might literally be several hundred versions of it, because in each country you can, you have to change it for each and every country.
Yep.
You can show this, you can't show that. And then in the course of selling a movie, you'll have 4 or 5 different trailers, throughout the thing. And he's told me so many times, when they rebooted Spider-Man after the 3 Sam Raimis,
The Amazing Spider-Man,
and they went to The Amazing Spider-Man, they thought, okay, well, we're kind of rushing this. But the world was completely exploding with superheroes, and that's their only property. Fox has
X-Men.
The X-Men, and Marvel Studios have pretty much got all their properties back. DC's owns all of their properties, and so Universal had the big thing with Warner Brothers had the big thing with Legendary Pictures to make all those movies. So there's all been those things in place, but they're sitting there watching, X-Men after X-Men after X-Men, and then Batman comes out, and then the whole Marvel thing explodes. That's been their only big budget superhero like franchise that they've had in a very long time.
Yeah.
And so they had the 3 Sam Raimis over the course of 7 years, and then it was just, I think, about 3 years later, 3 maybe 4, but I think 3 years later, the Amazing Spider-Man, the 2, which I didn't think were awful. And
I didn't see them, to be honest, but it's not like, I'm not a big comic book guy. I do like I'm a Marvel movie guy. I'll say that.
But not Marvel TV. You haven't got into all those shows.
No, I'm sorry.
Hey, it's not your fault. I blame the people at the Game Show Network for consistently showing the best of 1970 match games.
Well,
I
haven't seen every Card Sharks there is. So
I understand, but that's so. It's interesting that now Sony, you would have thought 15 years ago, no way they would have licensed out Spider-Man back to Marvel Studios.
Right.
But when they see that this Marvel Studios doesn't do anything that doesn't make several $100 million,
right,
that they do it right. That, again, and I keep saying this, when you take a serious D-list team like the Guardians of the Galaxy, and unless you're completely into the weeds on comic books, nobody knew who the Guardians of the Galaxy were. Unless you were a hardcore Marvel guy, they were maybe they were C-list, but I'm saying they were a D-list property that you completely brought to the forefront, that you are having go toe-to-toe with Avengers.
Iron Man was in the same boat.
I'd say Iron Man was always a B-list, maybe a C-list, but no, because he in the comics always had the the back and forth with Captain America, like Civil War, which came out 20 plus years ago in the comics, and he did, the other thing is there was an Iron Man cartoon way back when there was the 60s Spider-Man. There was also a Captain America. There was also an Iron Man. So Iron Man has been a low B, high C lister. Yeah. And then when the Civil War thing happened in the comic books, he became a solid B. But the movies have truly, you put him in the conversation. Is he on the Mount Rushmore of comics, of the comic heroes, especially over the last 15, 20 years?
Yeah, I think as far as the MCU goes, yes.
Right. So I mean, you know what? Let's maybe we'll do a sideshow on the Mount Rushmores of the different.
Right. How long is this? How long of a landscape do we have to carve? Do we need 4?
Yes.
Are we limited to 4 heads?
Well, unless there's some hidden heads on Mount Rushmore that I don't know about.
Yeah,
Then,
that's where they're hiding
So-
all the gold.
So it's funny. So the fact that Sony really needs Spider-Man to be such a huge property for them, and I don't know what the split is on that, whether they licensed it away and what portion of the profits they get. Of course, no movie in Hollywood makes a profit, so I don't know how you split up profits when those don't exist by Hollywood accounting.
Right.
But it's interesting that they not only say, yeah, you can, go ahead and use this, but weave him into the Civil War thing. And even now, pretty much have him being an auxiliary. He's on the Avengers, but he's like a bench. He's on the bench. He's
an
in their
official
farm
bench
system.
warmer. Yeah, he's an official bench warmer. Speaking of bench warming, it's July, so what's on the tip of everybody's tongue? The Patriots.
The New England Patriots. Joe, thank you for bringing this up. So hopefully the three people I know who love the Patriots nearly as much as us, who wonder each and every week why this isn't an all-Patriot, all-time
This is
podcast.
the Patriots segment, or as I like to call it, the Joe Eats Chips While the Microphone's Off segment.
We are talking, it is from the time of the posting of this podcast at midnight tonight, we're talking 11 days until training camp. He's actually eating chips. 11 days till training camp. 26 days to the first preseason game against Jacksonville. Joe, when you're going down to starting the tailgating, you're going to get there like 4 a.m., 5 a.m., get a really good spot for that week one.
I'm starting now, brother.
and that's a great thing. It's like, my favorite preseason game is the first one, because you have like 90 guys on the bench. It does look like a college football team where you're so close to having to have triple-digit numbers on the players. And the great thing is you're looking out, and these guys are in an NFL stadium, being paid to be there, wearing the uniform on the bench, and half of the guys out on that field today, that is the only time in their lives they will ever wear an NFL uniform with their name on it and be part of the roster. I mean, it's one of those things where, it's so full of hope, but,
It's
most of them are going to get squashed.
It's like official fantasy camp.
Yeah. Well, fantasy camp that you had to work your ass off, like, through Pop Warner, through 4 years of high school, through 4 years of college.
All right.
You've literally dedicated.
Ding.
But so we're talking 11 days to the start of training camp, 26 days to the first preseason against Jacksonville, but then 54. We are Teddy Bruschi days away.
Oh. Well played.
Teddy Bruschi days away to the season opener against Kansas City on Thursday Night Football, which, Joe, here's the thing. Last year with the suspension of Brady, sidebar, I hope they find some reason to suspend Tom Brady the first 4 games of this season. Julie, at 40, I would literally love for Tom Brady to start every season with a 4-game suspension. And maybe...
I think Giselle would, too.
It maybe each year he keeps playing, like next year it's 5 games, the year after it's 6 games. You want Tom Brady upright and as healthy as he can be in November, December. And same with Gronk. I hope Gronk gets busted for doing something... I don't want to throw anything out there, but
yeah, right.
But maybe posing with another porn star wearing his jersey, while like he did a few years ago in Arizona. But if we could put him in bubble wrap until maybe the end of October, maybe the first week of November, we need him in November, December, January, hopefully February. So, but back on track where. Last year you had the suspension and you had the revenge tour. You had some people called it the scorched earth tour. Oh my God, the last thing you wanted to do is piss off and light a fire into Brady. And you knew once he came back, heads were going to roll. And he did. He went 14-1.
Yes.
Like last season. So he had the whole town, the whole team had this revenge tour. So you would justify you won. You had the biggest comeback in Super Bowl history. Do you think, and I don't think so, I don't think of Belichick, who the next day after the Super Bowl said we're 6 weeks behind half the teams in the NFL, meaning the teams that didn't make the playoffs were already prepping for this season. So one day after the Super Bowl win, we're behind the ball. We got to get moving. We got to make up for lost time. So he's not going to come in slacking. But do they come out with as much fire? I mean, how do you have to manufacture that much fire. And the crazy thing is, even Julian Edelman was asked like this week in a national, I think it was on ESPN, is the intent to go 19-0? It's like you've conquered every giant, and you do have local people talking about it and national people flat out asking the Patriots, with all the postseason or with all the preseason acquisitions and the pre-draft trades that they did, and going out and getting more weapons around Brady, and keeping Jimmy G and stuff like that for insurance. Is that the intent? Or do you think? And of course, they're going to say no. They're going to take. They would love to have 19 one-game winning streaks.
Yeah.
But I mean, is that something that they're making this unrealistic target for themselves or goal for themselves to kind of mimic the fire that they had last year?
I don't think so. I think they're just playing the best Patriots football that they can. They're not. I guess at this point you could probably say that they're playing against themselves. They are trying to do better than they've done the previous season, which is, better than winning the Super Bowl, but better than winning the Super Bowl being down 28-3. Maybe they want to win the Super Bowl being up at halftime.
Which again, it's been mentioned before in this podcast. Will be mentioned almost every podcast. The Patriots have never scored in all the Super Bowls they played in. This is such an anomaly. This is the most effed up thing. It is so preposterous that Tom Brady has played in 7 Super Bowls. It's mind-numbing when you think he's had 14 years as a starter, or 14, 15 years as a starter, and that he has been to a Super Bowl almost half the time he's been in the league, never scored a point in the first half or the first quarter.
Right.
They've broken the record.
He's a grower, not a shower, baby.
So last year they're 14-2, 3-1 without Brady. The one loss, without Brady, you had the third string quarterback with a busted hand.
Right. That's what it took to break the New England Patriots.
Third string quarterback with a busted hand loses to Buffalo. So, you take that outlier away, and, with the 3 playoff wins, they were 17-1. Technically, 17-2. But how do you do better than that?
You don't.
So looking at their schedule, knowing that they have the Super Bowl schedule, knowing that they're playing so many good teams on the road this year, and the thing is, everybody who's lived through the 2007 season doesn't want them to go undefeated. They just don't.
Right.
You want a loss in the middle of the season. You want something to have Belichick to berate Brady about halfway through the season. You don't want that pressure, because as much as you say you're just thinking about the next, no, you're not. No pitcher going into the 9th inning of a no-hitter is they can say all they want that they were just going out one pitch at a time.
Yeah.
It's not true.
Right.
When you're on the precipice of doing something that has never been done before, then, and yes, the Miami Dolphins with a 14-game schedule had in a 2-round playoffs back then, went 16-0.
Yeah.
But you'll think about it. But what do you think the realistic, what is your prediction, realistic for the Patriots? Regular season and Super Bowl.
Joey the Greek says.
Joey the Portuguese.
Joey the Portuguese says. That's right, I can say Portuguese. You can't. I can. That's my word.
That's our word.
Right.
What do you mean our word?
Right. What do you mean What do you mean, you people? I don't know. I think. They will have a couple of losses. What are their schedule? Who are teams that they're going to be facing this year?
They play the Steelers.
Yeah.
And in the playoffs last year, it was supposed to be the first time that the Steelers in 10 years in the playoffs against the Patriots had everybody healthy.
Yeah.
And then, of course, their big running back Bell, had some kind of boo-boo, blister on his pinky or something like that. But he ends up begging out of the game.
There's always a spoiler, though. I mean, especially in the AFC East. They always lose. They lose one of the Bills. They lose one to the Jets, and they lose one to the Dolphins. Somewhere in the mix.
And you go through some of the bigger losses they had. Well, they start the season against Kansas City, and it was 3 years ago when Tom Brady got pulled in the game in Kansas City. It was, I think, his second worst game, as an NFL quarterback. He had one game a little worse against Miami a few years beforehand in Miami, but he got just shellacked in Kansas City 3 years ago. And that's when Dilfer, was famous for saying, he's all done. The Patriots aren't a good team anymore. They're just not a good team. They go on to win the Super Bowl. And then the next year to the AFC title game. And then, anyways, so, and they've gone to Cleveland before and got shellacked by a Cleveland team that wound 3-13 that year, but one big win against the Patriots. So they do. They got Denver. They got... which isn't a great team this year. They still got a great defense, but I believe the game is in Denver. So that's one of that there and Miami are the two places that is a little bit between Brady's ears.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to say, of course, the Bears, Dick.
The Bears.
And New England
Polish
form.
sausage.
I want to say that, this is 19-0. But realistically, I'll say like 13-3 and win the Super Bowl.
Okay.
I'll be a front runner and take the Vegas odds because the Vegas has them, so far ahead of anybody else.
I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to be the first to say it, and you're all going to say you heard it here first. Julian Edelman gets brought up on gun charges. You wait and see.
Oh, you saw him naked on the ESPN magazine.
Did
Man,
I?
is he packing guns?
Oh, man. That's a full arsenal right there. I don't know what it's full of, but,
So I'm saying 13-3. They win the Super Bowl. Who do you throw out a crazy prediction? Who do they beat in the Super Bowl this time?
Why? You know what? Why not give Atlanta a second chance?
Really?
Why the hell not?
Okay, I'd beat the same team twice. Sure,
Yeah.
Why not? I do not like the Dallas Cowboys.
You do not like them, Sam. I am.
I do not like anything about that organization. I would like, and part of me is would like them to never win a game, to never win a playoff game. But there's a part of me, the what's the German word, Scheißenfreude?
No, that's a thing on YouPorn.
No. I think
Schadenfreude.
Schadenfreude. Thank you.
Sour grapes.
So where the only fan base that's more obnoxious than the Patriots fan base, and I'm self-aware enough to know why I'm personally hated, why I'm hated as a Pats fan, and why collectively Pats Nation is hated. But the only fan base more obnoxious than the Pats fan base is Dallas.
Yep.
And they're no more boisterous or obnoxious or buying the souvenir sweater. The difference is they haven't done anything in 20 years.
Have you seen the Bills fan base, by the way?
The Bills Mafia?
Yeah, the Bills Mafia.
You mean the team that celebrates September like nobody's business? No one told them the Super Bowl is not played September 14th every year. They forgot that memo. No, but I would love it to be Dallas just because, I would just like it to be Dallas.
Let me ask you this. Who would win in a Super Bowl? The New England Patriots or Conor McGregor?
Which is no more absurd than Conor McGregor. Wait, can he use Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu moves? Right. Can he take the fight to the ground? Because he has a better chance of beating the Patriots if he can use.
Here's the twist, though. Floyd Mayweather plays for the Patriots.
Oh, yeah, no, then he doesn't stand a chance.
Okay.
Plus, he's Irish, so he'll be drunk.
You can say that because you're Irish?
No, because I'm drunk. But good times. So we covered Spider-Man. We covered the Patriots. We're done.
No, I was segueing into the Conor McGregor thing. So you saw that you saw the 20,000 fans showing up for the Conor McGregor non-weigh-in Floyd Mayweather. What the fuck was that?
It wasn't even a weigh-in. It was just they're going on tour. They're doing this in a lot of cities. It's just a hype thing. Just people want to show up live to watch these guys stare each other down and to talk trash. I mean, that's literally all it is. It is watching the WWE and then turning it off when the fight actually starts.
Right.
It's just
watching all the promos.
But 20,000 people jam.
These are people who show up for the trailers, by the way.
For the trailer, right? Who jam the Staples Center. Yeah, so Joe and I had talked about that. I jokingly think it was last week. I said, hey, in a new segment, is this racist? So we're going to bring back that statement or that new segment. And this week in racism, or is it racist? When Conor McGregor had said, that he's black from the waist down.
I missed that, Mark.
Oh, that's the big remark that he's that some people are up in arms about this week is, and the thing, and I don't know if it was the LA one or one of the other, Fight Hype live things. He was saying that he's half black, that he's black from the waist down, and so a lot of people are like, well, although it's a stereotype that, pun intended, swings in favor.
Oh, it's not that he can dance really good?
Yeah, exactly.
Or that he can finish a marathon in under 2 hours, or...
Hey, which the Kenyans always win the marathons, and if your training, involves being chased by tigers, you'd be a great marathon runner too. Now, is that racist?
I was going to say, I think we're segueing into a new segment called Am I Racist? And I don't know. But
seriously, it's one of those things. The PC police, nationally and locally, a lot of people have come out and said they love the trash talking, they love the bravado, they get this is theater, but does that take it too far? Is that a racist thing? Which, it's really funny because some of the people who, are up in arms and saying that steps over the line aren't on the front line saying that every time Trump calls, Senator Warren Pocahontas, that's okay.
Right.
It's not okay.
Honestly, I think anything can be taken into any context and be made to sound racist or even more racist than it actually is, depending on whatever your agenda is,
So Joe and I checked with the Jewish people who run the media to find out if we could talk about this, which again is one of those things.
Is this racist?
Is this racist? No, but what is the line between, joking about a stereotype or incorporating, when a George Lopez comes out, or you did it the other day, Joe and I were talking about this, when Homer Simpson was watching a black comic. Go ahead, do the whole bit.
When he was watching the old hack kind of brick wall stand-up comedy special where he's watching a black comedian, and the black comedian does the hack joke of brothers, they drive like this, and he leans back.
So Joe is extending his arm, leaning back, looking really cool. And
white guys drive like this, all hunched over. And Homer laughs and goes, "It's so true. We're so lame."
Which, and that's one of the things where if it's on a stand-up thing, is it okay to exploit or make fun of a stereotype or people?
If it's your own people.
If it's your own. What do you mean, your people?
Exactly. Think about it. Don Rickles, may he rest in peace. I watched his last Netflix special, the little documentary, where he said a lot of racist-ish jokes at audience members' expense. Not exactly funny per se, it is maybe cringeworthy. So there is there is something to making fun of your own culture's stereotypes. And
so will there be a reboot of Blazing Saddles?
No.
Even any chance at all?
Why?
Why? Because you can't improve on perfection?
Right.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Right.
But would anything like that fly today?
Probably not. No, just the sensibility. Even back then, those sensibilities were almost on the border of being dated.
Right.
That type of delivery and humor was just on the border. And you sort of took it with the notion that, okay, it's coming from Mel Brooks, who comes from an older generation. So that to him, to that generation, that humor was, body and edgy and out there. Whereas today, you watch it, I don't know. I haven't shown Blazing Saddles to my 17-year-old son, so I don't know what his take on that humor would be.
Right.
So I don't know. Maybe he might find it offensive. Maybe he might find it awesome. The world may never know. And
again, like you were talking about Rickles, and what was the he made a joke. Was it at a correspondence dinner that was just so cringeworthy about Obama forgetting his broom or something like that, like referring to him as the janitor?
Yeah, I forget what he was. It was like something about a mop.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Just Google it. It's worth a Google.
It's worth it. And again, it was like at that point, like, and does he get away with it at that point? Because he's A, Don Rickles, and that's his shtick forever? Is it B, the fact that he's just a 90-year-old white guy?
Right. 90-year-olds have this license to not give a shit anymore. Literally anymore.
So I just have to wait about 35, 40 more years.
Right. When you turn 90, all of these jokes are going to be charming as fuck.
Oh, Grandpa, and your racism. How cute is that?
Yeah. So, it's like time plus tragedy equals comedy. So your tragic jokes plus a little bit more time will be funny. We're going to break for our defunct sponsor of the week.
Is it Blue Apron? Are they still around?
They're still around.
How about buying gold? Have you thought about buying gold, Joe?
I have.
In this economy.
I'm buying moon rocks. My money's in moon rocks. But no, we're going to break for our defunct sponsor of the week. So defunct, you would think that Trump ran the business.
There's a professional football league that believes having fun is the most important business at hand. The USFL, where football is still a game.
The preceding message presented on behalf of the United States Football League.
Speaking of Trump, now we've done Spider-Man, we've done everything except go over the political stuff, and we haven't touched the political stuff this week because basically when Joe and I were talking the other day, Joe had lamented that it's getting tiresome and that it's not funny, and I agree. And I said to Joe, the only thing is it's daunting and it's draining and it's futile. Two white guys sitting here, bitching about it. But part of me is, the more I thought about it, that's how, quote unquote, they win. And I do say they win. And part of the problem with the lefty tree hugging, snowflakes like myself is we do not have the fight in us that the other side does. We just don't. The old joke, and I think I said it last week when Democrats form a firing squad, they stand in a circle, and the end fighting between Bernie people and Hillary people. 8 months. We're talking 8 months later is still raging.
Yep.
Nobody's stepping forward, taking leadership, truly of the party. You look at the other side. I mean, Roe versus Wade. That was in 1973. You weren't even a glimmer in your parents' eyes yet.
Right.
They've never lamented from that fight. There's never been an election cycle, whether it's local or on the national level, that hasn't been a huge talking point. There are people in the Senate and in Congress who run on that platform alone. Yep. They have not wavered on that fight for like 43 years. And same thing. You think about. Is this doing anything? Is this bitching doing anything? Is this Russia thing tiring? Well, Benghazi for, several years, hurt Hillary. There was nothing there. They fought when there was nothing to fight over. They created the conspiracy for 6 years of being birthers. And they never, to the day Obama was out of the White House, never wavered on that. There were still people, even during the election cycle, Trump was asked point blank about it. And he wasn't, saying, at one point he goes, yeah, no, I'm thinking, he's a citizen. But hey, what do I know? It's like after spending so so we're not going to sit here and lament over every little nook and cranny. But at the same time, the Tea Party, they never stopped fighting, and now they are the conservative wing of the party.
Maybe you're right about one point. Is that I think
point?
Shut up. I think about it and thinking about it now. I think Democrats and liberals tend to rest on the laurels of, well, the truth will set us free. What we're propagating here are facts, and the basis that they are facts should perpetuate itself. Like, we're not purporting something that is a falsehood. We're not trying to propagandize anything that isn't true. So therefore, why should we put in so much effort to propagate the truth? It should be self-evident, And what happens is that the Republicans, for the most part, in my opinion, tend to take sort of these truthiness kind of opinions that aren't exactly based in fact, but just beat it into everybody's skull over the course of years. And, a lie repeated enough times will become the truth. And I think that's where they go to the gym every day. Like, that's where they get their workout, and that's sort of propagating of the truth probably has to become, second nature to hardcore liberals, or not even hardcore liberals, just people who are even independent people who just want the facts to be known, to not just let the facts sit out there and just say it once. Like, well, this is a fact. You can just look it up.
The sad part is the truth doesn't come into play, with that side. The millions upon millions upon millions, the hours upon hours. At one point, there was an 11-hour hearing with Hillary over Benghazi. Every branch of the government, every branch of the military had come out and said she did everything she was in power to do. But it didn't stop them from using that against her right up until Election Day. The same thing, the emails. There was nothing to the emails. There was these could have been something. But on the other side, now with Donald Jr. this week, not only what there could be something, not is there an email that could have led to a meeting with the Russians. Here is the email setting up the meeting. But yet they never relented. And my whole point is, it's daunting. It's fatigue. But if you throw your hands up and say, what is the point? If you disenfranchising the voters, if they make it harder and harder for somebody to be able to vote, if they keep moving the goalpost, it gets frustrating. But you go way back and I did a good 5 minutes of research, but you find out that, in 1881 in the Island of Man, that was the first place in Western civilization.
The Isle of Man.
Yeah. That gave women who owned property. You had to own property. So if your husband died and you owned the property, or if it was, you got it from your father in a will or something, if you were a property owner in 1881, you could vote. And then you think, okay, from that point on, the suffrage movement in the United States started in 1896. It wasn't till 1920 they got the right to vote.
Yep.
Slavery was, abolished. The Emancipation Proclamation came out in 1864, and it wasn't until the Voter Rights Act of 1965.
The Civil Rights Act.
The Civil Rights Act,
Yeah.
that Kennedy had started, that Johnson put into law. We're talking 100 years later.
Right.
And
better late than never.
And you think about the fighting, like literally
Ding.
the women who were beat for wanting to vote, the people who, the African Americans lynched for trying to vote. It's one thing to move the goalpost and make more restrictive voter IDs and have less voting machines in the inner city and make it, more of a laborious task to vote and persuade people to not vote versus being lynched for trying to vote, you know? So it's daunting and it's horrible, but this is the same group of people that have been doing this, that made women fight for 50 years before they could vote. And then it was, like I said, 100 years from the Emancipation Proclamation to the Civil Rights, Act, 100 years later. So this absolutely sucks. And the moving the goalpost sucks. The fact that this past week, the email comes out that everything that we were hoping for, because first we never talked to Russia, Michael Flynn, Manafort, one by one. Sessions, all these meetings come out. Oh, I forgot that meeting. Oh, no, I didn't lie on my security thing. I forgot I had that meeting. Jared Kushner forgot that he went to the Russian embassy and tried to install a line that they could talk to her. He forgot about that meeting. But here is Donald Trump Jr., with Manafort, who was a campaign manager at the time, and Kushner CC'd on it, lining up a meeting with the woman who, this week had, come out and said, first she said no, she had nothing to do with the Russian government. And now she came out this week and said, yeah, she was, she was working with the Russian government. And the people, even on the Fox News, on one hand, you have people like Chris Wallace this week who Fox News people are like, when does the lying stop?
Yep.
When do they come clean? At the same time, Fox News has gone from, look at these snowflakes talking about Russia. It never happened. Fake news, to, well, yeah, Russia meddled in the election. All of the intelligence agency in our country and worldwide said it happened. but there was no collusion, to this week saying, okay, well, yes, obviously the Russians did it. Obviously there was collusion, but collusion isn't a crime, really. If you think about it, collusion really isn't a crime. Is actually literally what they are saying this week, that, well, yes, it did happen. So the moving the goalpost is tiring. But Joe, when I talked to Joe the other day, and I got it, and I sensed it, and I get the same way, right after the election, for about a month, I buried my head into Patriots podcast and news and stuff, and I didn't want to admit it. And Joe's like, it's a reality. You can't bury your head in the sand forever. It was maybe a good 2 months. I couldn't listen to political thing. I couldn't talk about it. Thank God the Patriots went on the run that they did.
That's what I was going to say. God forbid the Patriots didn't go to the Super Bowl and win. You'd have nothing to listen to except your own empty thoughts.
Seriously. And you didn't have the box set of Get a Life yet. So it would have been really as much as it was a dark time. But here's the thing, Joe. It matters. And I do. I take 5 minutes a day and I make one call. I make an effort to write one email to a state official, be it a state senator, be it Elizabeth Warren's office. You can pick up the phone if you have no idea who your state rep is in Congress. You can call the switchboard and ask, here's my zip code, and you will not talk to the guy. But believe me, they write down every call and what you're talking about. And don't call and talk for 10 minutes. Just call and say...
And go with the script.
Go with it, like, make it, keep it simple, stupid. You go in and you say one thing. Like this week, you call up and you say, please protect net neutrality. Please protect net neutrality. It's an important issue. If you don't know what that is, look it up. It is important. Or call up and say, look, I know my senator is going to vote against Trump care, but please, this is important to me. I have a child who was born with a pre-existing condition who 20 years from now will not be able to get insurance if this goes through. Please keep fighting for this. Even if they're on the same side with you, call up your people. Take 5 minutes. Honestly, at a red light, ask Siri, hit the one button on your hands-free so you don't get into an accident while at a red light, and say, call the Senate and, get the number, and you will feel like you're not a victim. You will feel like you're doing something to fight back. Every senator, state, local, person, your national senators and Congress people, their emails are all online. It won't take more than 1 minute to Google, who's my senator? Just put who's my senator, put in your zip code. Put who's my congressperson, put in your zip code. One click, you got the person's email address, and just send a 2-line thing saying, dear congressperson, this is where I live. Please protect my health care. Please protect net neutrality. Please keep a woman's right to choose in place. Whatever your thing is. And instead of just a couple snowflakes sitting in a basement bitching about it, you will feel like you're doing something. And that's, believe me, the Tea Party people were a bunch of wingnuts in funny costumes who didn't know what they were talking about. Like all the comedians who went to their early meetings and stuff like that. They were disorganized. There was no real leadership. The Koch brothers, it turned out, had funded the whole thing. But look, 10 years later, they control a quarter of the Senate. They control a quarter of the House. Honestly, when you heard that the first attempt at passing Trump care wasn't conservative enough, that it didn't go far enough, that group of people, the Freedom Caucus, I think they were called, the 20 people in the Freedom Caucus, those were all Tea Party people. That's how powerful that the Tea Party people are, that they scare the rest of the Republicans to bending towards their will. You take 5 minutes a day and you don't feel as helpless. You don't feel like you don't have a voice.
When do we get our corporate funding? Because, granted, yes, Hollywood money is fantastic. All these fascists in Hollywood with their big Hollywood spending money want to, propagate all of these causes and, fascism this and fascism that, as you hear from the right. But then, let alone the thousands upon thousands of corporations that lobby Washington for their causes that, like you said, the Koch brothers, funded the Tea Party movement.
Our friend Dan, Joe and I talked about this on a podcast a few weeks ago. Dan on his Facebook page put the libertarian 1980 libertarian platform online. They published, this is what we believe in. And I told you at the time, even the Reagan people were like, oh my God, this is batshit crazy. These people are complete lunatics. One of the two Koch brothers was the vice president, nomination from the Libertarian Party in 1980. Here it is, for almost 40 years later, you see that all the things on that have either come to fruition or are about to. And again, because they never stopped fighting. They never stopped complaining. And
they never stopped funding.
They never stopped funding. So it's true. I've thought about that before. It's like, what if a George Clooney, instead of offering $1 million to host the Democrat presidential party at his house, said to, as Trump called him, we don't know who's doing the hacking. It could be some 400-pound guy in his parents' basement. What if George Clooney said to the 400-pound people in their parents' basement, I will give $1 million to anybody who comes up with...
But that's not enough.
The Trump tax return.
Honestly, we need Warren Buffett type of money. We need Bill Gates type of money. We need Apple kind of money. We need we being lefty pinko liberals like us... The Democratic Party needs that kind of huge, crazy money from somewhere. And unfortunately, the Republican Party favors the companies or the corporations with the most money. And serves their interests.
Well, what's awesome is when they say the liberal media. It's like, no, the media isn't liberal. The media is owned by these huge corporations. That when you see that Rush Limbaugh is on over, I think it's like 700 stations in the country, there is not a progressive station in the city of Boston. There's NPR, which NPR, just ran a 3-hour, or PBS rather, just, ran a 3-hour puff piece produced by the Betsy DeVos campaign. Like the Betsy DeVos, corporation had put together a thing, and they paid NPR enough to put it on there. They need the funding. Yeah, there's the NPR station, 90.9, the WBUR station, tends to lean, mostly left, but they have conservative shows on. There's no equivalent to Fox News.
Right, there is no, what happened to Air America?
Right, exactly. Speaking of Air America, thanks for bringing this up. Joe and I, over the past week, has sent, messages back and forth. Dude, Al Franken is on this podcast. Al Franken is on that podcast. I moments ago said there's nobody stepping up, taking over the Democrat Party. Is Al Franken putting a run together?
No.
You really don't think so?
Selling a book.
It's all okay. So he does have a book out, and what we've heard him on Mark Maron's show, Larry Wilmore's show, and there was another show that
he'd been on The Daily Show. He's been on a couple of TV shows. I'm sure he's been on Conan or something.
But that's all. But
Colbert.
But that is always the blueprint. What people do when they are running, it doesn't matter if it's Bernie or if it's Hillary. On either side, about a year before they announce their run, they put out a book, and. One of the things I've liked about Al Franken, and it's amazing that he's talking about this now because he's been in the Senate for a while, that he doesn't do the TV shows, and he doesn't go on the TV shows and use his pull as a comedian, his pull as an entertainer, his pull, with Saturday Night Live and stuff like that to go and campaign or to go and get his agenda across. He has just done nothing except be the best senator he can be for his constituents and the nation as a whole. But now he's been more vocal and more public since the election. And I think he's basically saying, I'll step up, or our voices have to be heard more. And maybe if his voice has to be heard more by writing this book and doing these shows, maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, I think that, these tours have to pay for, somebody has to pay for these tours. And I think maybe he's using the publisher's money as a vehicle to go out and be more vocal. Whereas before he would have had to, put together some sort of PAC or something in order to raise the funds to go out and, Right, so maybe...
Like Mike Pence having that big fundraiser about 2 weeks. He did. Yeah. He had a big fundraiser for himself, not for the Trump-Pence 2020,
which has been filed for, and they are literally running for president in 2020.
Right.
Right now.
Because you can take campaigns now.
Yeah.
You can start building up that word. But with Al Franken, here's the funny thing. We were talking about this a few weeks ago, that Sessions has rolled back the the maximum sentences for the lowest infraction of possession. So, again, some, kid gets pulled over in a car with a joint, could be facing like 20 years in jail and all that stuff, where 2 of the last 3 presidents have openly admitted to smoking pot. Now you have Al Franken running, who, when he talks about it, he was a comedy writer in the 80s, or in the 70s. He was on Saturday Night Live, which I'm not sure if cocaine was an absolute currency recognized. I think cocaine as a currency in the 70s was more recognizable than Bitcoin is today.
If he didn't explicitly say that he was not running for president or he had no aspirations to run for president on the Mark Maron podcast, I would tend to agree that maybe he is running for something. But I don't know. I'm going to take him at his word that he's not running for president. But, of course, things can change,
And lots of times people, like Paul Ryan has never been running for president, but he wanted to be asked. He wanted to be begged and coddled into it. And I don't think that's the type of person Al Franken is. But I think by upping his cue now...
You think he's a Japanese businessman who has to be asked 5 times before he does something? Like he has to be asked over and over again, do you want to run for president, sir? And then finally he relents and says, yes, okay, fine.
To save face?
Yes.
See, that's one Japanese term I know. So, but... Yeah, I think he's starting to be more public. And if not to run for himself, to maybe he's running to be vice president. Maybe he's upping his cue, or he wants a bigger voice. And again, where I specialize in beating a dead horse, getting back to sending one email, one phone call a day, as cliche as it is, your vote counts. He won his first Senate seat by less than 1,000 votes.
Literally less than 1,000 votes.
I want to say it was closer to like 300-400.
They had to do 2 recounts, I think.
They did, because under a certain amount, it's a recall, and then under that amount, it's a second recall. And at the time, like the Senate was split. I mean, there was a couple things, that they really needed the Democrat vote for. So it was, even though he won, he didn't go in right away, which actually, the Republicans used that time to usher through a few things. So I think he's really upping his cue.
Well, how about this? If he does run for president, I hope his vice president candidate is named Stein.
Why would you want his vice president to be named Stein?
Wouldn't you want to vote for a Frankenstein ticket?
You see what he did there? Now, let me look. Going down the road, mate. Oh, what time is it?
It's time to end this fucking pot. Oh, wait. No, sorry. It's time for our random video game review of the week. I know you've all been waiting for this moment. Jacques has spun himself around. He's picked a game off the Nintendo Entertainment System collection shelf that I have, sadly. And I'm now going to look at the gap on the wall. By the old gap on the wall, I can tell that he pulled out a game from, I believe, the S column. It's before section Z. I'm going to say Cycross, but I know I'm wrong. Oh man, how apropos. How apropos to this week's news. Russian Attack.
Spell it out.
It's Rush, like the band, 'N, Attack. It's a classic Konami game. Konami did a lot of arcade games in the 80s and 90s. This is an 80s game, obviously. I forget what the original name was.
Remember when the Russians were the bad guy?
Yeah, I know. This takes me back.
Till last year.
Right. The guy on the cover is like a Green Beret-looking dude who with a... what kind of gun is that? I can't tell. That's like some sort of machine gun, kind of... I don't know what it is. But basically, it's a run-and-gun kind of game where you're a soldier who's running away from, or you're infiltrating a Russian base or something like that, and you're fighting Russians, or the Russians are invading us. I forget. It doesn't fucking matter. You have a gun, you're running to the right of the screen constantly, and the Russians are attacking, and you're attacking back. And you use knives, you use guns, you use grenades.
If the Russians look your president in the face and say, "No, we're not attacking you," is the game over and you win?
That's it.
How does that work?
You take them at their word, unlike when Trump didn't take Obama's word when he swore that he was born in the United States. Thank you, Larry Wilmore, for that note, but that I stole. So getting back to Russian Attack, it's a great game. It's a decent port from the arcade game, and it's Konami, back in the heyday when Konami didn't fucking suck. Fuck you, Konami. That's right. That's right. I said it along with Guillermo del Toro. Look it up. Now it's the second most exciting moment of your week when I try to guess how much Russian Attack goes for on eBay, which I'm sure Jacques has pulled up right now. Card alone, loose cartridge. I'm going to say $6.
You know, you split the uprights because I'm seeing it as low as 99 cents. And as high up as $9.99 with free shipping.
You have to go to the sold items. I don't know if you can do that on eBay. You don't have the advanced eBay app, but there's a way to look it up where you can look for just the sold items and see those prices. That's the more accurate.
That's what I will do next week. All right, so we're going to wrap it up with the parenting tip of the week. I'll go first. The right answer is never, I just don't give a fuck. For example, let's say one of your children or both your children are into something like a Pokemon where there's so many draining characters. And when you're driving and you're asked, Papa, who do you think is better? This unpronounceable Pokemon creature or this unpronounceable Skylander figure? The right answer is never, I don't give a fuck. Now, we know the answer is, yeah, I don't give a fuck. What I try to do is, kind of parrot back to them. It's like, oh, which one is that? What's his power? And then it's like, which one do you think, buddy?
Oh, you engage in your children's conversation.
Oh, dude, if you don't,
I know.
it goes on. You
right.
know? It's that or talk to the wife.
Oh, no. Not that. Not happy birthday.
But happy birthday.
Not happy birthday. Oh, and my parenting tip of the week, explain to your children what porn is before taking them to a superhero movie that references porn. It makes a world of difference, and it makes for a less uncomfortable situation when the entire audience laughs at the porn joke when your 8-year-old is sitting next to you.
Joe and I took our families, not willingly to the movie, but we took both our families there, and you could hear to my right where Joe's child was, and to my left where one of mine was, and they both asked, thank God they both looked to their mothers and asked what it was, and Joe and I did the
right, yeah.
Pretending that we didn't hear that, but yeah, I like that. So I think solid show, Joe?
Nah.
This week, we're going to end with a song from our friend Dave's band, The Rationales, who have a show at the Middle East Upstairs, August 3rd. Actually, I'm springing this on Joe now. I'm going to try to get Dave, the singer-guitarist from The Rationales, to maybe come on and do a show before his August 3rd at the Middle East Cafe. It's a Thursday night. We will be there. It's a CD release party for The Rationales.
What's a CD?
Do you have digital download parties? I mean, it's hard to... Here's a bunch of binary codes on this disc for you. So that we're going to try to make happen. Unless there's anything else, Joe?
I would just say... geez. Dude, don't forget...
Let's get alone. Come take a ride with me. We need the landscape changes, kill some miles and cut the distance in between. You never know.